This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remus.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Big show today, coming off a fun night at Canada Life Center last night. Big Jet win over the Seattle Kraken to stay alive in the playoff race. We're going to be all over it. Connor Hrabchak's going to join me in just a minute. We'll hear from Mr. 900, Mark Scheifele. Hit a big milestone last night and was celebrated by the home fans. And Mike McIntyre is going to join us a little later on as well. I'm very much looking forward to a couple things in addition to our hockey talk. The Rock League, this new professional curling league, very innovative, started yesterday with its inaugural day of their first ever event. Our guy, John Cullen, is going to join us. Very busy guy doing all the calls for the event. It's going to be on CBC on the weekend. All the games are live. It's like fours of men's, women's, and mixed at the same time in sort of a point system, almost like a Ryder Cup. So really interested to find out about that. And then, of course, there's some big-time player movement around the world, specifically with a bunch of the Manitoba teams, Carey Anderson, Matty Dunstone, Winnipeg's Mike McEwen. So we'll hit all of that with John a little bit later on the program. And then right at the crack of 3 p.m., for those of you with us live on YouTube, we are going to do a bit of a self-raid and go right into our Masters preview with our favorite picks and best bets with myself, Jake, and Pat. That will be immediately following the main show of WST today. So it's going to be a real fun afternoon. Looking forward to getting in the lab with the boys to cook up our favorites for the Masters. And speaking of cool bet, don't forget, gang, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, 8 p.m. is our next WST poker tourney. Hope to see you all there. If you haven't played a cool bet before, you go over to cool bet, click on the poker. And then once you get into the poker app, click on tournaments and just search WST in the spot to find a tournament. And we'll be going at 8 p.m. There's a $100 bounty on my head and a $100 bounty on Jeff Hamilton's head. If you eliminate us, buying a $30 should be a lot of fun. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Also want to thank the other great sponsors of WST. Of course, our friends at Princess Auto, Chud's Power Sports, Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, Uptown Alley, Roley's Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, and Breezy Bend, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug. And, of course, we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. And, of course, thanks to the Manitoba Building Trades and the Manitoba Federation of Labor. Shout out to all you podcast listeners making WST a part of the day and everyone that's with us live on YouTube already. The vibes seem to be good in the chat room. Let's welcome in Connor Hrabchak to get the show on the road. What's going on, dude?
I'm doing well, Huss. Fired up to be here. What a night that was at the rink. The Winnipeg Jets, some highlight reel goals. They score 6. They haven't done that many times this year. They scored 3 power play goals. Scheifele, 900 points. Brad Lambert with a 6 snipe and awesome Selly on his goal. It was an awesome night. And Huss, I think the most important thing that we need your comment on immediately is the counterclockwise wave that happened inside Canada, or the reverse wave, counterclockwise from where I'm sitting. But how about that? I haven't seen many reverse waves inside Canada.
Very rare reverse wave that happened last night in the third period. And you know what? Listen, I'm going to say it right off the bat. and maybe I'll give Mike a hard time when he comes on, because it seems like some of the media fall over themselves to like tweet out the attendance when it's a bad crowd. Didn't see any of that last night. I was, to
Great
be
crowd.
honest, going to the game last night. Obviously there's a couple softer ones. There's been a ton of hockey lately. You had that 8-game homestand in March where, like I obviously spent a lot of time in the upper bowl, and you can always tell how the crowd is. The last places to sort of fill are the upper sides of the corners, like section 310, 324, 325. I went to the game last night thinking, geez, Monday night game, 6:30 against the Kraken, who don't really have a following. The team's sort of in a real desperate situation. I was wondering what the crowd would be like. I thought it was one of the best crowds that we've had in the last couple months. And you know what? Credit to the fans. They really did bring it. I mean, I thought that first period was a little quiet, not for the fans, but on the ice. But then the Jets got going, gave them lots to cheer for, and it ended up being, as you said, like a really fun night in the building, celebrating a nice win and some big-time performances by a bunch of players wearing the home jersey.
And most notably, Mark Scheifele hitting 900 career points. What a milestone that is. And Liz and I were on the post game, and we were talking about this season. And it just feels like I'm there at the post game. Mark Scheifele speaking to us at the media, and he's thanking the fact that he plays with Kyle Connor. He's thanking his family, his friends, the organization. I feel like I've been in this scenario like 5 times this year where Scheifele's hit a big points milestone or a career high or a big games played milestone for the franchise. Like, he has had such a season of milestones, both in terms of points, goals, games played for the franchise as he turns 33 years old. And hey, one of the big things we're tracking here outside of the playoff race for the Winnipeg Jets is Mark Scheifele's quest for 100. 3 assists last night ain't going to hurt that. He's up to 97 now on the season. 5 games left, 3 points to go. And that, again, I'll have deja vu again standing around Mark Scheifele in a post-game interview where he's hit yet another milestone.
Well, it was part of the good feeling of last night as the Jets sort of really took control of that game and ran away with it, was the fact that he got the 900th point and got just an awesome standing ovation from the crowd that was there last night. That was sort of one of those moments. And I mean, there's been a bunch, as you mentioned, for Mark, games played and obviously hitting, a number of milestones. 900 points is big time. And I mean, he'll eventually get to 1,000 points, which is going to be something else, and probably 1,000 games and, everything else that, was still ahead of him. But that be doing it in the midst of a career year for him, obviously a down year for the team overall. But, with just a couple games left in the regular season, barring a, incredible run and, return to the Stanley Cup playoffs, those sort of moments, for the team, for the fans, and certainly for Mark are ones that you remember. But, he was certainly celebrated last night, and deservingly so. I think at times, maybe we take for granted some of the players that, we have on this team. And this is part of the conversation around how it went so badly so early in this season and how the team is in the spot that they're in. One thing that you can't point to is a lack of production from the top line led by Mark Scheifele. And listen, assuming that he gets 3 more points on the season, which is highly likely, it'd be a pretty awesome milestone for a guy that's on the other side of 30 playing some of the best hockey of his life.
Totally. And listen, I talked about this last night too, because we're tough on Mark Scheifele, but it's because he's the top line center. We know that he has this potential. We know that he can play at this level offensively and produce. And you hold him to a higher standard. And yes, absolutely, it does result time and time again, or now and again, in maybe taking it for granted. And when you look at the NHL scoring leaders, there he is, tied for 5th in the National Hockey League behind some of the heavyweights in the NHL with 97 points. And Jay Miller pointing out in chat, 900 points for Mark Scheifele, Dale Hrabchak at 929 in a Jets uniform. So next season. That'll be a big one. And look, he's at 956 games played for his career, Huss. I'm going to feel old when we're doing a silver stick ceremony for Mark Scheifele next year. That's going to be crazy. So it's added to another, incredible season for him last night, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. No help on the scoreboard last night. And T-Will, I'm sure you were watching the show yesterday. I mean, that was a guaranteed 3-point game between the Kings and the Predators, just like they did 4 days ago. Kind of hilarious that both of those teams had the 2 head-to-head matchups and they split shootout victories. Much quicker shootout yesterday than the one 4 days ago, where somehow they left Evangelista until the 8th shooter. My eyes it felt like acid on the eyes watching 15 terrible shootout attempts before that. Last night, Kempe got off to a great start and they weren't able to equalize. So the Kings get that point. But yeah, Connor, I mean, and this is the thing. I mean, you know what? You reap what you sow a little bit. They put themselves in this situation where, it's very precarious and you kind of have to assume the worst. And let's face it, the LA Kings don't win in regulation. They have 19 regulation wins this year in the NHL, better than only one team, the Vancouver Canucks. And yet they wake up with about a 50% chance of making the playoffs because they've got a knack for getting it to OT and then obviously hoping that they'll get that second point. But T-Will, I don't think anyone was surprised that sucker went and had the bonus point given out last night.
Yeah, and with the bonus point, the LA Kings move into that second wild card spot ahead of the Nashville Predators, as we've got them up on the screen here. Great work there, Adam. And yeah, look, we called it yesterday, Huss. We said guaranteed 3-point game. They just went to OT and a shootout a couple days ago. You knew the Winnipeg Jets chasing these two teams. And as soon as it was 2-2 with 10 minutes left, I was texting some friends saying yeah, this one 2-2 going to OT, guaranteed. No one's scoring down the stretch here. But look, we've talked a lot in the Winnipeg Jets season when things weren't as great and they were 32nd and losing a ton of games about the ethical tank. What is ethical? What is unethical? I can say this for certain. What the Los Angeles Kings are doing might be the most unethical playoff berth I have seen in a very long time. Win a game in regulation. Come on, this is an absolute joke. This system of 3-point games becoming such an epidemic around the league is unbelievable. And you might think LA, yeah, they don't have many regulation wins. They're frauds. They're probably going to fall out. Well, the runway is getting short here. And the Kings play the Canucks twice, the Kraken, who we just saw last night and wasn't really anything special there, and then the Flames to close out their season. And they get the Oilers in there, which is maybe the one game where they're going to be an underdog. But they have a pillow soft schedule to close out the season here. And they've just gotten, what is it now, 32 games to extra time this year. It's ridiculous.
Oh, I think it's more than that now. I think it's 34 or 35. They've gone to OT in their last 4 games.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 in a row.
It's insane.
it is what it is. I see K-Dog, Huss, did you have the Nashville LA as one of the picks for an OT game? We certainly did yesterday. Had that on a standalone and actually had it over at Coolbet with the over in the Buffalo Tampa game. So unfortunately we didn't hit them both, but I mean, these OT numbers normally at Coolbet, it's usually plus 330. The Kings games are now plus 305. I mean, you're not getting the same number for any other team than you do on LA if you're just picking the draw. But again, we'll take that one. Big slate of games tonight, which we're going to be getting to later on at the end of the program. And then, as I mentioned, we're going right into our Masters preview with Pat and Jake, which should be a lot of fun. Couple other things. Yeah, Lishka. Last place, Vancouver has 15 regulation wins. Playoff bound LA has 19. Come on. I agree with you. They don't deserve to be there. I am sort of torn, though. I guess if the Jets aren't going to be in, to be honest, I think I'd like to see Macklin Celebrini and the Sharks, even though I think that would be a very short series against the Avalanche. I won't be upset if LA gets in, because I think it would be an absolute travesty to have Anze Kopitar go out in a regular season game as opposed to a playoff game. But with the exception of the respect I have for Kopitar, there's not a damn reason why that team deserves to be in over Nashville, over San Jose, and dare I say Winnipeg. But again, Connor, I mean, this is sort of what is so frustrating, I think, for a lot of people watching, these games right now, is that this team is so much better than we saw earlier on in the season. To be honest, I mean, I think that if you put them on a neutral rink against any of the other teams that were playing, they would be favored. They'd probably win. But I mean, all of those games count. We talk about, there's a big games at the end of the season. Guess what? Those points left on the table in November and in December, they all add up. And the way things look right now, it's going to be a painful autopsy on this season overall, because to be perfectly honest, the way that they played over the last month should be enough to put them in. And I'll tell you what, this kind of transitions over. We're going to talk more about Scheifele in a minute, and we'll hear from him. We talked a lot about getting the young guys in, and what can this team get out of the last 15, 20 games of the season? Well, Elias Salomonsson has been far and away the best story of the year as far as thinking about the future for Winnipeg. The guy is a stud. He looks like he'll be on the blue line for a long time, even though obviously he's out right now after that hit from Robertson in the Dallas game on Thursday. But dare I say, Brad Lambert is coming into his own. There's nothing this team needs more than some dynamic, young, offensive talent. And listen, it's tough to get your feet wet and really feel comfortable in the NHL. But I do think that this extended run at the end of the year has done wonders for Brad. And listen, he was a big part of the reason why this team won that game last night.
Yeah, what a goal. And at a big moment in the game too, right, Huss? It was 3-2. Seattle had just scored to cut it to 1. And you kind of get that feeling. I mean, we've all watched the Winnipeg Jets this year. No lead is safe, right? Like we've known this. You start to get that feeling, and then Adam Lowry makes a nice play in the neutral zone. Brad Lambert's coming in with speed, and Vince Dunn, I'm not sure, like he's playing it more to the middle and just kind of letting Lambert take the lane. But with two veterans on that 3-on-2, sometimes rookies just naturally defer. They look for the pass. They don't want to be the one to take it to the net and shoot it. He realizes he has the lane, keeps his head up, rips a shot over the shoulder. Like I said earlier, absolutely nails the celly. You love to see it. You love to see it. Jets could have used that speed down the wing all year long. It's great that he's coming along now, but you talk about the added frustration. I mean, like, it's not like the secondary scoring was this like dynamic threat for the first 60 games. Like I like what I saw from Brad Lambert, and I think we're seeing a more confident, more comfortable player by the game. And Huss, you mentioned how this team is so much better now than they were in January. Thursday's game against the St. Louis Blues, believe it or not, is a matchup between the top two teams in the West since the Olympic break. St. Louis is number 1 at 13-3-3. The Jets are number 2 at 12-5-4, which, by the way, the Winnipeg Jets at 12-5-4 since the Olympic break is a 109 full season pace. 109 point full season pace. So the Jets are playing at a 109 point pace since the Olympic break, since they got faster, since they got more youth in the lineup, since they gave Brad Lambert a little bit of leash. Like, yeah, man, this if they missed by a point or two, this is going to be so frustrating.
Well, and listen, I mean, I'm sure that there are, some really tough conversations that if they've probably been had already. But if they're not, they should be at the end of the seasons going, how, like, you look back and figure out how you got in this situation. And I'm telling you right now, well, I'll say this and you can agree or disagree. This will be the why not question of the day for non-Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. If they had rolled with a Lambert, like kept Lambert up, and Elias Salomonsson makes the team and plays all year, as opposed to running out Luke Shen all those games and Gustav Nyquist all season, is this team a playoffs team?
100%.
I say yes, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Oh,
man, especially Salamonson, because look, he came up and they, at the time he came up the first time, they threw him immediately into the top 4, and the first 4 games weren't great for Salamonson, and the coach talked about that. Salamonson talked about that. We could all see that there were turnovers, there were mistakes, but that was him getting thrown to the wolves, getting thrown into the deep end sort of thing. If you started Elias Salamonson with the Winnipeg Jets this year playing 13 minutes a night on the third pair and kind of eased him in, I don't think he would have looked that uncomfortable in his first recall. And then we all know since this latest recall, I mean, he's not even in the lineup right now due to the concussion, but he's absolutely cemented himself as a big part of the future, a guy who was winning his top 4 minutes, all of that stuff. If that could have happened sooner for the Winnipeg Jets, another viable right shot defensive option, yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that their third pair doesn't get caved in every other night and they don't lose all these games by 1 goal. The amount of games they've lost by 1 goal in regulation, or it's a goal here, a goal there that swung a game, that was a result of their third pair and Luke Schenn getting heavily outshot, outchanced, outscored, all the above. I have no doubt in my mind that this 3-point gap would be closed if they started with Salo over Schenn.
Well, and just to back up this take, Dmitry Filipovic tweeted this out after the show yesterday. Jets 5-on-5 expected goals share leaders since the Olympic break. Number 1, Elias Salomonsson. Number 2, Cole Perfetti. And number 3, Brad Lambert. So, I mean, it's a younger, faster game. They did see it. There was one other great development last night. And speaking of Perfetti, I felt sort of bad for him in that the power play had been doing nothing. They make one change, Perfetti for Taves, and all of a sudden it's like a magic wand. They go 3 for 3, perfect on the power play. And I got to give Taves a lot of credit. The veteran moxie that he had on his goal, if people missed it, it was a shot really high up off the glass. And he had the spatial awareness to see what the puck was doing, got body position, got his stick on the ice in front of his skate, literally played it almost like a soccer player would with the ball, just to control it right down onto it and then put it in for about 3 or 4 inches, and it was in the net. Big goal because, of course, the team was down at the time. But kind of funny how just a little tweak can completely turn around a group that had been really, really struggling. That's been a big part of the reason why, they're so far off of the pace that they set last year with the number 1 power play in the league.
Totally, Huss. And Sportsnet showed the stats on Saturday since January 20th, 22nd, whatever the day was. They had the 31st best power play in the National Hockey League. Season long, they weren't that great either in terms of percentage and league rank. And last night was the first time all season long they scored 3 power play goals in a single game. And yeah, I feel bad for Perfetti too in a way. And it's funny because we talked to Arnil at the morning skate and we asked him, Taves for Perfetti, what's the thinking behind that switch? And the first thing he mentioned was faceoffs. They felt that the Winnipeg Jets power play wasn't winning enough faceoffs, and therefore, their entry isn't as clean this year. They're just not spending enough time in the offensive zone. So winning a draw can really help them spend that first minute in the zone with pressure. Well, the Winnipeg Jets' first power play of the game, Taves loses the draw and it immediately gets cleared down. But regardless, they still come down and end up scoring, and Jonathan Taves gets the goal. So the number 1 thing that they wanted to change it for didn't even happen, and yet it still worked out as Jonathan Taves, like you said, great play by him to control that puck off the end glass. That's a tougher play than it absolutely looks. And then I also feel bad for Perfetti in a way because you look at, and Mark Scheifele admitted this post-game, that this goal was lucky, the Kyle Connor one, but to Mark Scheifele's point as well, you create your own luck on the power play. If you spend the full minute in there with chances and stuff, the puck's just going to bounce in off someone's skate. That Kyle Connor goal goes off of Ryan Lindgren's stick and floats over Philip Grubauer and in, and it goes down as 1-for-1 on the power play. And it's man, they have not been getting that bounce on the power play for months. But yeah, to Mark Scheifele's point, it might be a little lucky, but when you're winning faceoffs, your entry's cleaner, and therefore you're spending more time in the opposition zone on the power play, you're going to get bounces. And if you're not in the zone, you're not going to get bounces. And I think that's been a big issue for the Jets. So clearly Jonathan Toews getting him a power play goal himself, winning some more faceoffs, maybe the spark that the Winnipeg Jets power play needed here, which is a group that has been struggling really all year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, after being down 1-0, it was the power play that took over the game in the rest of the first and second period. And what a goal by Gabe Vilardi, assisted by Toews. He got the assist on Toews' goal. And then, of course, Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor did the rest. Kyle Connor's second goal was absolutely sick, too. Basically falling down. I mean, that's
one-timer.
Yeah, I mean, that fade away one time. It's a perfect way of describing it. All right, in just a minute, we're going to hear from Coach Scott Arniel and Mark Scheifele on the big milestone last night and the win over the Seattle Kraken. That is next, coming up right here on WST.
Hey, Bob, you hear the news?
I can't listen to the news, Daryl.
This is different.
Oh, it's so negative.
Not this time. Manitoba's got these new jobs agreements. And when the government builds things like new schools and hospitals, they'll hire Manitoba workers first.
Really?
Creating good jobs with union standards and more apprenticeships for Manitobans. And we'll get rid of those out-of-province license plates on job sites.
Keeping our money working for Manitobans, eh?
You betcha.
Well, that's how it should work.
I knew you'd like it.
A message from Manitoba's Building Trades and Federation of Labor.
Spring into good times at Uptown Alley and eat, drink, and play at the most fun spot in the city. You'll enjoy 5-pin bowling, 10-pin bowling, a state-of-the-art arcade, and good times playing laser tag as well. And in addition, Uptown Alley features incredible food and drink options at their bistro. Pop down to Uptown Alley with your group or make it a party. It's the best place in Winnipeg for birthday parties for kids, teens, or adults, and an amazing spot for corporate events where you just simply pick your activities, any of your add-ons, what you'd like to eat, and the Uptown Alley staff takes care of everything else. For more information, go to uptownalley.ca, book a lane at 488-0000, or pop down and see him at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue. Got a move coming up? Lean on our friends and longtime sponsors at Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in moving and storage in Manitoba. Now into their 7th decade with over 60 years of experience, family owned and operated. Head over to their website at rollies.com to find out all about their services serving Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. In the top right corner, you can click on Request an Estimate. Use the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies, and then simply let them know when you're moving, where you're moving to, and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly and get you a great quote to get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they've been famous for now for over 60 years in Winnipeg. For all your moving needs, make it Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in the game. Find out more and request an estimate today on your next move at Rollies.com. Has it been a minute since you've been to the dentist? If it is, our pal Dr. Terry and the wonderful staff at St. Vital Dental Center would love to see you. They've been taking care of generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans in St. Vital for years, and have now moved into a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building. They'll handle customers and clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full array of dental services, from cleanings and checkups to surgeries like dental implants. Dr. Terry and the gang can absolutely do it all. We'll do it with a smile on their face and make your smile look even better than it's ever been. Go to stvitaldental.ca online to make an appointment. Pop into St. Vital Dental, get that girl taken care of, and tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. All right, as we mentioned, a big milestone night last night for Mark Scheifele and the Jets 6-2 win over the Kraken. Scott Arniel spoke at the podium after last night's game and was asked about Mark Scheifele. And, of course, he talked about Scheifele as a leader of the club.
Yeah, and he communicates to those guys, too, about, it isn't just go out and, have your half an hour, 45-minute practice and get yourself off the ice or whatever. It's go out for a purpose, and the purpose is to get yourself ready for your next game and work on some of the things that you're going to probably end up doing in the game. And I think he in the weight room, his maintenance, taking care of his body, what he does on the ice, all that preparation. Guys watch him, and he's not afraid to talk to guys about it. And the young guys, they like to listen. And, you hear it on the bench, communicating. It's great to see KC talking to, Rosie, Scheif talking to, Lambert or Fetz, or, it does go, works its way around the room. And, Lau's always talking to, whether it's Koepke or Barron. That's what your leaders need to do. And, it's something that we had talked about, I've talked about for a couple of years, is that pass on your knowledge. That's the best part about, those guys have probably all had real good mentors on their way up the ladder, and we need those guys to help these guys that are coming.
Obviously seen a ton of hockey. Mark has hit 900 points tonight. He's nearing that first 100-point season. He's not old, but he's also not a young guy. Just how impressive is that feat that he seems to be getting better with age?
Yeah, that's just, I think, first going back to what we just talked about, all that preparation that he does. And his body is always ready to go. And he, it's a case of he's determined, he's driven, and, he wants to have, team success. And then with the team success comes individual success. And that partnership with KC certainly helps that. But he's a guy that I think you see a lot of guys in the league that are older that are still real good players, and that's because they're such good athletes now is probably the biggest thing.
All right, so there's Arnie on Mark Scheifele, and he mentioned, the communication with the younger players. Brad Lambert, one of those players that seems to be flourishing right now in his opportunity at the end of the season with the Winnipeg Jets, scored a big goal last night. Here's what Arnie had to say about the kid getting on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, the speed obviously going down that wing, and he had one earlier in the game. I think he missed the net on it, but just, that's a great shot, obviously, picking the corner on that over the blocker. And it was a big goal at the time, too. So his speed, when he uses it, when he pushes people back like that, he can be hard to play against. And it's nice to see him get rewarded for it.
Connor, it was, a month ago or so when, it didn't look like this team was going to be in the playoffs. And we were speaking about what the Winnipeg Jets can get out of the final month of the season. And seasoning and experience for their younger players was certainly one of them. But on the other side of things, what an incredible opportunity for Brad Lambert to maybe erase underwhelming numbers at the American Hockey League level, come in and show that he can belong and give himself maybe a leg up on being on that opening day roster and beginning next year in the National Hockey League. And I think game by game by game, getting better, getting more confident, and that was really on display last night.
And that's exactly what you want to see, right? I remember you had a conversation with Murat Atesh a couple of weeks ago when there was 20 games left in the season, and the conversation was, okay, who has the most at stake in these final 20 games? And it was easily Brad Lambert, and we could all say that. I mean, this is a player who's been in the AHL the past number of years, hasn't gotten his NHL opportunity. There was the report earlier in the year from Frank Saravalli that he, was requested permission to seek a trade with his agent or whatever that report ended up being, all of which he just wanted an NHL opportunity. So when he comes up at the deadline, Kevin Cheveldayoff stands up there at his deadline presser and talks about how Brad Lambert and Isak Rosén and these young players are going to be here for the rest of the year and get a chance. This is all you want to see, is Brad Lambert getting more comfortable, getting more confident by the game, leaning into his strengths. Like, you don't have to be Patrice Bergeron when you come to the NHL, right? Like, you're a fast, skilled winger. Do that, lean into that. And I loved that goal last night, just oozed confidence to me, where he's on a 3-on-2, but the defenseman's taking some weird angle. Yeah, I'm just going to step into it and rip it because I'm good at hockey and I can do that. So I love what I'm seeing from Brad Lambert, more confident, more comfortable by the game. And last night was no different. Against his uncle, Lane Lambert, he said after the game that he hadn't scored live against his uncle ever, but that was kind of a weird connection. He kind of ended their season in a way, Huss, with that goal.
Yeah, I mean, like, that team was not very good last night. I didn't think. They got Minnesota tonight. I think you'll know what side I'll be on when we get to the cool bet lines in that one. But listen, as we mentioned earlier, I mean, the juice in the power play was a huge part of last night's game. Here's Scott Arniel on moving Taves to PP1 and what they saw last night.
Obviously the 3 goals, getting that first one was big, but we talked about, it gave us an opportunity with him taking the face off. Chandler Stevenson is real good on the draws. He's a number 1 PK guy. either put him on his backhand, on his forehand, or they sent somebody else out on that side. So it was just a little bit of trying to line up and come off that side of the ice, and we went with I don't know if I mentioned this morning about more of a shot mentality of attacking the net a little bit more and a little bit quicker. And I thought we did a great job of that, and a lot of that stuff kind of came off. The goals came off of that.
All right, so there's a little bit of the coach after last night's game. Now let's get to the star of the show last night, Mark Scheifele, 3 assists, hit .900 for his career, and is now just 3 points away from his first ever 100-point season in the NHL. Before we talk about the milestone, though, here's what Scheif had to say about Brad Lambert stepping up and scoring the way he did last night.
Yeah, it was a big goal at that time. They just scored, and he made a nice little move, kind of backing off the D, and just kind of a sneaky release. He's been playing awesome. He's been getting better every game, and it's been fun to watch him. So, just looking forward to seeing, him get better each and every game.
I think his very next shift, he went after Montour in kind of a one-on-one. So, can you see his confidence maybe growing even shift by shift?
Oh, for sure. You love to see it. He's a creative guy. He's got skill. He's got speed. He's got he's got great hands. So you love to see that. You love to see a guy try someone one-on-one, and with every game, you just got to keep getting more and more confident, keep getting more and more comfortable, and it was awesome to see tonight.
All right, so there's Mark Scheifele on Brad Lambert. Now, the main topic after the game was obviously the win, staying alive, but also on .900. Here's Mark Scheifele on the milestone and the reception he got from the faithful at Canada Life Centre last night.
It means a lot. It's obviously, very honored and humbled by it. So, it's pretty cool to think about. It'll probably take a little bit to sink in, but obviously it's, very cool in my mind.
Who do you think of tonight, Mark?
Oh, everyone that's been in my life, throughout the hockey years. Family obviously is big, and, just got to thank God for it all. I'm very blessed, very lucky, and just got to thank God for it all.
All right, so there's Scheifele on .900, and at this rate, Connor, we'll see what happens with the end of this season. Mm-hmm. Not out of the question that we could be talking about 1,000 potentially next year if he could possibly follow up next season with a similar one to this year. Probably asking a lot considering this is a career year. But as Arneal said, I mean, the guy is so committed and has spent so much time being in top condition and taking care of his body, as so many players are. We're seeing better performances on the other side of 30. And it has been incredible, though, to see what he's been able to do this year and the consistency of that offense.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, Huss, because you look at Mark Scheifele's career, he's never eclipsed 90 points, let alone 100 in his entire career, right? So if he's able to get 100 this year with only 5 games to go and 3 points, and then next year can follow it up with another 100-point season, which, like you said, is asking a lot because this is the first time he's done it in his career. We could be talking about 1,000 points for Mark Scheifele next season, which is just crazy to think about. I talked about how, next year on the docket for Scheifele is going to be 1,000 games. He's going to pass Dale Hrabchak. Hitting 1,000 points, that would be we think this is a big milestone year. Can you imagine if all 3 of those got hit next year? That would be something else for 55. But yeah, I mean, Scott Arneal nailed it. He takes care of his body. There's a reason why he's having a career offensive year at 33 years old. And he's still able to play at this level at an age where players typically start to slow down. That is a fact in the NHL, but not for Mark Scheifele.
Mike McIntyre is going to join us in just a minute. Adam, if we could just skip to number 7. This is the first clip from Brad Lambert. We're going to talk about Brad with Mike coming up, but here's what he had to say after the game about the shot and, as Connor mentioned, scoring against Uncle Lane.
Yeah, obviously, something that I want to keep improving. It's been something that I've been working on for the last couple of years and want to keep on working on. So, yeah.
That was obviously a big goal by you at the time to give your team a little bit of a buffer. When's the last time you scored a goal maybe at any level with your uncle watching on you remember?
I mean, I don't know if I've ever scored with him live. You know, obviously, I think he's been watching World Juniors when I played, stuff like that. But yeah.
Is it extra special at all, or every goal I'm sure feels pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, I think every goal, you know, feels great, and obviously to be able to, you know, do it at that time, and you know, a big goal for us, you know, made it extra special.
All right, so there's Brad Lambert. We'll talk about Lambert, Scheifele, the playoff picture in the West, all coming up in just a minute. Mike McIntyre joins us next right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Princess Auto is a proud sponsor of Winnipeg Sports Talk, in a lot of ways synonymous with Winnipeg. Headquartered here in the Peg, founded here in Winnipeg, and now serving Canadians coast to coast with the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So while we wait for the Bombers to kick off, get ready for spring. Those projects on your list with great deals throughout the month waiting for you at your local Princess Auto, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West in the city, out in Brandon. And you can always shop online 24 hours a day at princessauto.com. Spring is just around the corner, and our friends at Chud's Power Sports up in Gimli, Manitoba's power sports superstar, are ready to get this snow out of here. But before we do that, great end-of-season deals on sleds and snowmobiles that you can check out. But as we get excited for the snow to leave, great preseason deals on motorcycles of all brands, the best in ATVs and side-by-sides, not to mention golf carts for the summer up ahead as well. And it doesn't stop there. Amazing RV options for you to take advantage of the summer, and so many options when it comes to boats as well, in addition to outboard motors from Suzuki and Mercury. The best deals in town. That's how they've been in business as Manitoba's power sports superstore for 80 years. Pop out and see him in Gimli at the corner of Highway 8 and 231, and shop online today at their website at chudspowersports.com. April and spring are here, and Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are kicking it off strong with their Spring Power event. Right now, you can save big on the batteries that you actually need this season. Lawn tractor batteries starting at just $37.50. RV and deep cycle batteries from $69.50, and heavy duty power like Group 27 and 78 DT starting at $89.50. Need serious cranking power? Check out their 13-inch stud post battery, $94.50 while supplies last. All in stock and all priced to move. Visit Manitoba Battery on the north side on Logan Avenue, on the south side on Dovercourt Drive, and get powered up for spring at Manitoba Battery, powering what matters. Check them out online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's keep the show rolling. Mike McIntyre going to join us right away. And do want to remind you all that this segment brought to you by the Toyota Tacoma. Looking to dominate off the ice as much as your team does on it? Check out the Toyota Tacoma. Its standard I-Force engine boasts an impressive towing capacity of up to 6,400 pounds. It's the most powerful Tacoma ever. So whether you're hauling gear to the rink or heading to an away game, you can tackle it with ease. And the available panoramic multi-terrain view monitor gives you a live underfloor view to navigate even the toughest terrain with ease. Experience power, capability, and convenience with the Toyota Tacoma. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Prairie Toyota dealer during Red Tag Days from March through May. Let's bring in our guy, Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Mike, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing really well, Huss, other than the little Alberta Clipper, which can stay in Alberta, quite frankly. We don't want you here in Manitoba.
What is the deal on that? I was just pulling up one of your articles, and I couldn't help but notice when I went to Free Press, the first thing at the top of the thing is a weather alert.
Weather warning. I think I'm no meteorologist, although there was a time in my life that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be weatherman Mike. I think most of it's going to miss Winnipeg. By the looks of it, we may get a dusting, but there's a lot of snow kind of, I think, north and west of us. And quite frankly, what's the day? April 7th? I'm ready for spring. I want golf courses to open. I want the cesspool that is my backyard right now. Thanks a lot, Bodie and Piper, for a winter's worth of souvenirs. Yeah, I mean, I should actually blame myself. Who's the one that didn't clean it up all winter and is now going to pay a hefty price? It's a jungle out there, Huss. Let me tell you. But yeah, and it doesn't feel like playoff hockey weather, really. Although, the Jets aren't in the playoffs right now. But usually this time of year, like, it feels that, you feel the shift. And we got a little bit of it this past weekend. Although I see the forecast does look really nice. In fact, dare I say, later this month, there's some really nice looking weather for maybe a whiteout party or two. Remains to be seen, I guess, if that happens.
Listen, you might need to pump the brakes on the whiteout party right now, but to their credit, the Jets don't seem to be ready to hit the golf course just yet. Fun game last night, and so much to talk about coming out of it. Scheifele's 900, Brad Lambert's goal, and I mean, maybe right off the bat, we start off with the juice that was added to the power play with just one switch. I felt bad for Cole Perfetti. The minute they make that switch, the team is unconscious and is a perfect 3 for 3.
Crazy that's the first time all year the Jets have scored 3 power play goals. I don't know how many times they did it last year. I didn't go back and check, but they did have, one of the best power plays in the league last year. There's some games where you don't even get 3 power plays, let alone score 3 times. So, yeah, that was, I think the Tays move certainly helped. He was directly involved in the first 2 power play goals. The other thing, though, that Scott Arniel alluded to after the game last night was a shoot first mentality. Huss, we've seen these Jets, the power play looks more like a passing play where, and perimeter play where they move the puck around really well, but they don't really do anything with it. And I think what we saw last night was, why don't we just start putting pucks on the net? We've got guys in front of the net like Tays, like Velarde. They can get tips. They've got good hands. They can do some damage. And we also got, a really good shooter like Kyle Connor. Josh Morrissey's a weapon from the point. Mark Scheifele, obviously a real playmaker, but he can also score. Like, let's start being a little more direct. And I guess the question is, why did it take to game 77 for that approach? I mean, the power play has been terrible, for most of the season, Huss. And I think I saw the stat the other night that since January 1, I believe only the Chicago Blackhawks are worse. And the Jets are, this is before last night, the Jets were like just north of 10% on the power play. So it's been bad for a long time. And again, when we talk about like, if this team doesn't make the playoffs and come, painstakingly close, where it's just a matter of a point here or a point there, my goodness, there's going to be a lot of sleepless nights, I think, among coaches where they look back and think, geez, if we could have got a power play goal in this game or that game, that would have been the difference between, a regulation loss where we didn't get any points or a shootout or overtime loss where we could have, grabbed the extra point. So better late than never, I guess, maybe, not necessarily. But yeah, it was a good sign for the Jets. And, I hate to be kind of a Debbie Downer here. I think the worst thing that happened last night, Huss, I'm sure you would agree with me. You've probably crunched the numbers here. I think the Jets should have been rooting for a Nashville clean win last night over Los Angeles. Like, to me, Los Angeles getting 2 points out of that game against Nashville is probably the worst scenario for Winnipeg, because when you look at the upcoming remaining schedule for the Kings and the Predators, the Kings' schedule is marshmallow soft. Couple games against Vancouver, and somebody had to win that game, so either way the Jets weren't gaining ground. But I think honestly it would have served the Jets better to have Nashville be the team that got 2 and LA none. Instead, Nashville still gets 1, but LA gets the 2. So that was a tough result for Winnipeg for sure.
Well, listen, I mean, like I said yesterday when we were doing the cool bet lines, I mean, that's guaranteed 3-point game. And we bet it. at over 3-1 and got it just because you know that this is going to happen. Dude, the Kings
32.
To reset this.
That's insane.
They have 19 regulation wins.
Yeah.
Better
Jets
than
have what?
only the Vancouver Canucks.
Jets have 27. Like, how can you explain that to somebody who maybe doesn't follow the game closely? The team that has 8 more regulation wins is actually behind the team that has 8 fewer. But the Kings have played 32 overtime games, including 7 of their last 10. I watched that game last night, or the tail end of it, and like the whole third period looked like almost both. It looked like there was a gentleman's agreement between the teams.
Yeah.
To just get it to overtime, and then we'll settle it, one way or another. But I mean, that it's not a great look for sure for the proponents of changing the point system. The LA Kings could be Exhibit A on, for those arguing that the point system is badly broken, because in no universe should a team with 19 regulation wins in 77 games be in a playoff spot. I'm sorry, they just shouldn't.
Yeah, listen, I mean, you know me, I've been banging the drum, and that's the hill I'll die on. The NHL should be going to every game be 3 points. You win in regulation, it's 3. Imagine if that was a 3-point game last night and a regulation win was 3 and the other team was 0.
Right.
How different would the third period of that game been? Significantly.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyways, that's I mean, obviously Gary likes the way things are right now, with everyone thinking that they're still in it. It's still a long run for the Jets. I think we looked at, let me just pull it up. We didn't do it right off the bat today. But the Kings, with that win last night, get to 50% or 49.8.
Yeah.
Nashville's at 26. The Sharks, who beat the Blackhawks last night and keep pace, they get to 23.5. And Winnipeg sits there at 8%. St. Louis 4.3. So again, it's still like there's no doubt that this team needs to run the table. There is absolutely 0 outs left.
I had
even
a guy.
If they do that, it might not be enough.
No, I had a guy before yesterday's game trying to make the argument that the Jets could go 4-2 in the last 6. I'm like, huh? No chance. No chance. And and I said what you just said, which is even 6-0 might not get it done. 5-1 would take a miracle, and like all kinds of help would have to come where you don't expect it. But no chance 4-2 would get her done. This guy's like, and I believe he said that it would easily get it done. I'm not sure if he forgot like that there was 3 other teams the Jets have to pass, because like they're not just chasing one team. And again, there's games like last night. I think San Jose's still got a game against Nashville, right?
Yeah.
I think this weekend. So, I mean, someone's getting 2 out of that. And like I said, Vancouver, well, I'll tell you what, there was the symmetry at one point between Winnipeg and the Vancouver Canucks organization, of course, back in the old Manitoba Moose 1.0 days, and the Jets, or the Moose, sorry, being the farm team for the Canucks. Maybe the old friends in Vancouver might want to do the Jets a little favor here and play spoiler with regards to the LA Kings, because I believe that's LA's next game on Thursday, and then they meet again in a few days from now. So, like,
hey, at
LA
least they
can't
clinched
win.
32nd. At least Vancouver's clinched 32nd, so they can play free, go out there. Hey, they put up a snowman on Colorado last week. I mean,
they did.
Crazier things have happened. The problem is that you need that for LA, you need it for Nashville, and you need it for the Sharks, who put themselves back into that position. So,
and Winnipeg's schedule is still tough coming up. I mean, St. Louis, I think actually Connor tweeted the stat that the Jets and the Blues are the 2 best teams in the West. This is a titanic meeting on Thursday between 2 non-playoff teams who actually have been the 2 best teams in the conference. The Flyers, of course, are playing well and have everything to play for. Then they have to go to the tough back-to-back next week. Vegas, a place where obviously we don't have to repeat Winnipeg's issues with playing in Vegas. And Vegas has a lot to play for. I guess Utah's the one team that's maybe kind of locked into probably where they are. So, but then that's going to be the second game of a back-to-back. And then you get San Jose, and, and obviously if you're a Jets fan, you're praying that San Jose game next Thursday means something. And, given who the opponent is, it's an intriguing scenario for sure. As I say, there's just that little pesky problem about the LA Kings and, to an almost similar degree, the Nashville Predators. The Kings and Predators need to kind of go away, and they're not really doing that, especially after last night.
Mike, sitting in the stands last night, chopping it up, watching the game into that third period, we got talking about Brad Lambert, and I've seen a couple people mention this on social media. What is so frustrating from a fan's perspective right now, and it raises a lot of questions about decisions that were made this year.
Yes.
Imagine a season of Brad Lambert instead of Gustav Nyquist and Elias Salomonsson instead of Luke Schenn. We are not having the same conversations that we are right now. And I do wonder how, when they do the autopsy of this season and look at the decisions that were made, it can't help but, linger around like the elephant in the room that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing. And I had this conversation with Murat last week, and I said it, wait till we get to the deadline. They'll make a couple moves. They'll play some of the younger guys. I'll bet the team's better. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Some young guys with energy trying to prove themselves, getting more confidence by the day. And that's Lambert. Salomonsson, almost since the day that he got into the lineup, has shown that he could have done a lot to help this team put a few more points up in the standings.
Yeah, and I thought Isak Rosean had a really nice game last night too. I know he didn't find the score sheet, but you could see his confidence growing as well. He made that play, I think it was in the second period, where he kind of cut across. Like it actually reminded me, I was saying to some people in the press box that it was like watching the old 27. Said the only thing that was missing is he needed to saucer pass it to himself as he cut across and then fired a shot. But it was a play that requires some confidence for a young player to make. And same with Brad Lambert. I mean, the thing to me, Huss, is the way he's now scoring his last couple goals. And I asked him this in that clip that you just played a few minutes ago. We talk about Brad Lambert's speed, talk about his skill. I don't know that anybody ever really talked about his shot, but we're seeing an NHL caliber scorer type shot from him. It's not easy to score in the NHL, and yet, that shot last night was world class. Forget who he scored his last goal on, but you remember the goal, I'm sure, where he's just inside the blue line and he ripped a pretty wicked shot to the top corner as well. So, his confidence is growing for sure. And even before his goal last night, you could just see the way he's playing. And, I've been impressed watching him in his own end, the way he's battling, not shying away from contact, not pulling the chute on, some tough puck battles in his own end. And I have to think that the coaching staff is loving what they're seeing from these young guys. And I agree with you 100%, Huss. I believe it was after the Columbus game on Saturday where Scott Arniel was asked by my colleague Ken Wiebe, about what made that game so effective. Why were the Jets able to stifle Columbus, who didn't generate a whole lot beyond early in the game? And Scott Arniel said, well, he talked about our mobile defense. And again, you almost wanted to hit your head against a wall and say, well, how did that defense become more mobile? And what could have been done early in the year to make them more mobile? So yeah, it's frustrating for sure to see now what some of these players are doing and how different the Jets look as a team. And, one way or another, whether they make the playoffs or not, it's pretty clear it's going to come down. They're either going to just miss out or just get in. But as you say, this could have been a very different conversation because, the Jets look revitalized, quite frankly. And, Yeah, momentum and confidence is all a part of that, but so too is team speed, and they have a lot of it now.
Well, I mean, having that conversation with some friends after the game, it brought me to, and I can't remember what game, you might be able to remember, but you look at what the team's able to do right now, what some of these newer, younger bodies have done and added to the lineup since they've been in, at the expense of guys that simply weren't getting it done. And I think back to the game when Arnie was asked something about whatever when it happened, he just said personnel. Yeah. And there's major questions about the usage of the personnel. And as I said, I brought it up before. Like, I do wonder, and I hope that maybe some hard lessons were learned this year, and maybe that gives way to maybe a little bit of changing of philosophy this year, because whether we're talking about the plan to have Salamonson in the American League the entire year, or really these guys getting brought up again was basically seen as sort of, okay, this is the situation we're in. We got to make something out of it, which is absolutely the right thing to do.
Right.
But, when they're doing their autopsy, I mean, what can they learn about maybe some of the missed opportunities to change things up when the team was in 32nd place overall in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, and riding an 11-game losing streak at one point. Even Huss, like, he's not a kid, but like every time I watch Cole Koepke play now, I'm like, why was this guy ever healthy scratched, considering what they were rolling him out for? Like, there were games where they parked Koepke in order to play Nyquist and also Tanner Pearson. I think there was a while there where those three were almost like alternating, like, and two of them were often in the lineup, but one was sitting out. And you watch Koepke and the energy he brings, his work on the penalty kill, the physicality that they don't have a ton of, the speed, and you're like, why did they ever sit this guy out? It makes no sense. They needed more of that, and that's exactly the kind of player, when you're in a funk, that can get you out of it with, even just one good shift where he's buzzing all over the place. And, the Jets talk about these handoff shifts all the time, which is just a term for, trying to pass the baton, if you will, right? Like, one leads to another. Well, Cole Koepke's the kind of guy that can go out and we've seen it in games where he can change the momentum with a big hit or, a really good forecheck. So yeah, it's Kevin Cheveldayoff certainly needs to be questioned about some of the decisions that he has, obviously, and more questions will come when this year ends, no question about that. And even Scott Arniel, to a degree, the way he's, once he had all the players he did, he was ultimately responsible for who was going in the lineup and how his lines were stacking up. And there's certain decisions that I think you can question along the way there, like scratching a Koepke. So, it's always easy to Monday morning quarterback. But when the line is so finite as it is for the Jets, and, you're saying, well, what went wrong here? It just seems like there's a lot of self-inflicted wounds this year that probably could have been avoided, that maybe others saw coming or saw as they were happening. And for whatever reason, the organization was either they didn't recognize it, or they were too stubborn to really do anything about it, or too loyal, or whatever the reason is. You can make the argument that it cost the Jets some valuable points along the way.
Well, and while we're talking about that, I mean, obviously there were some veterans that had really underwhelming seasons, and you wrote about Nino Niederreiter's return to the lineup yesterday.
That was interesting what he had to say.
Interesting, pretty frank admission that, Nino was looking, his 1,000th game. Listen, I get the guys wanting to play in the Olympics, but to sort of come clean and say, you know what, if I had to do it all over again, probably would have been done earlier. I think, listen, I appreciate the honesty, but at the same point, I mean, you look back and, kind of wonder, I mean, he was dragging it big time for a good portion of the season. I think even back in the lineup last night, still looks like it's far away from the best of Nino Niederreiter we've seen. And that was, were you surprised at at that interaction with Nino?
I was, and I asked him, I couch it in not a softball way, but I asked in a very respectful way. You know, you had these two big milestones, obviously, that meant a lot. Was that kind of your reason for it? And I did not expect him to be as frank as he was, which was to say, absolutely, you nailed it. That's exactly what was going on, he said. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's good to know. And yeah, I mean, like, look, he was not a productive player for long stretches during the 55 games that he was in the lineup. And in fact, you know, I think you could make a valid argument that there were times his play was really hurting the Jets. And Scott Arniel clearly agreed with that statement at one point, because he actually healthy scratched him for a game, which I don't believe that's ever happened to Nino Niederreiter. Certainly not, you know, maybe in his rookie year or something, but like it got to the point where Scott Arniel was like, I can't even play this guy. Now, they called it a healthy scratch, and now we hear Nino Niederreiter say, well, he was kind of bothered since last summer with knee issues. So I guess how healthy was the scratch? Some people are going to want to pile on Nino Niederreiter and say, well, that's selfish of the player to do that. You know, it takes two to tango. The team, he wasn't hiding this from the team, to be clear. It's not like they had no idea that he had issues with his knee. They were well aware of it. And, so I asked Scott Arniel about that too yesterday, just to kind of get the team's perspective on it. And it was interesting where he said, well, we can't force a guy to have surgery. You know, there's agents involved, and obviously the NHLPA and the player and management and all that. But he also said kind of what Nino said, which is, in hindsight, you know, maybe it would have been better to get it done. And yeah, I understand to a degree, like Niederreiter's probably, I'm sure that the potential timeline scared him, right? Like, you've never really had a major injury. You go under the knife. And I guess in his case, he's thinking, well, what if it takes a lot longer than the outline that they give me? And what if I'm not ready for the Olympics? So, you know, but it's interesting, Huss, isn't it? Because hockey is the ultimate team sport. It's all about team over individual, you know, the crest on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back, right? And in some ways, you know, Nino Niederreiter's saying that well, his individual pursuits, they were a priority for him. And you know, I'm sure some fans maybe weren't thrilled to see the timing of it, which is as soon as the Olympics ended, like, he pulls the chute, and that's when he gets the procedure done. Again, when you look at how the Jets have played in his absence and the hole that created in the roster, and, you know, some of the people that filled it, I think we've seen a faster team. Now, I kind of get why they've put him back in the lineup. I mean, obviously Morgan Barron is hurt, so they suddenly had an opening there. There's still the whole issue with emergency recalls and limited number of recalls left. So, I think, I know a lot of people weren't happy to see him and Vlad Nemestikov back in the lineup yesterday. And I think in some ways they were sheltered a bit. And, you know, and who would have thought we'd be saying this? Back to your point about Brad Lambert, Huss. Maybe Brad Lambert's the perfect guy to put with those two, because he can make them look a lot faster just because of what he can bring to the line. And in some ways, you know, Brad Lambert's almost being asked maybe not to carry that line, but to be a big part of that line with two guys that have like combined 2,000 NHL games of experience. That's a big ask of Brad Lambert. And, you know, one night into it, I'd say he passed with flying colors.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Can't discuss last night and where the Jets are without talking about Mark Scheifele. Another monster offensive night, 3 assists, up to 97 on the year, Mike. Yeah. 3 away from his first ever 100-point season. He's already had his first 90-point season. And you know, I thought a really cool moment last night at the rink with the way that he was celebrated and congratulated by everyone in the building last night. Yeah. And you know, we heard about it afterwards, but you know, and it's frustrating too, because you know, you have this monster offensive season from those two guys, and again, chances are it's gonna result in A great individual season, but falling short of their goals as a team to be playing as part of the final 16.
Yeah, I mean, he's as Connor and you were discussing, like the fact that he's doing this at 33, he's aging wonderfully, it would appear, and this certainly bodes well for the Jets in terms of the ability to keep the window of contention open. Like the longer you have Mark Scheifele essentially in his prime, and you don't hear that term tossed around for a 33-year-old very often, but you look around the league, Huss, like there are players that buck the trend, right? And, Sidney Crosby, Brad Marchand, Corey Perry, all in different ways. But one thing about Mark Scheifele that we've learned about him, this guy is a master at his craft. He is as fit as can be. He takes very seriously his diet, his training habits, his routines. He's a hockey savant, a hockey nerd. And so if ever there's a guy that's going to age gracefully, it's probably Mark Scheifele. And yeah, he's just a magician with the puck. I mean, Huss, he could have a 5-point night last night, right? Like, look at the first period, gets the breakaway and then the great chance off his own rebound. He had a lot of chances both to score and setting guys up. He had another amazing pass from behind the net. I think that was in the second period that didn't lead to a goal, but just showed off his vision. And yeah, it's crazy. There's 4 players in the NHL that have more points than Mark Scheifele. And I'm guessing all the viewers and listeners out there have heard of these guys: McKinnon, McDavid, Kucherov, and Celebrini. Like, that's it. That's the list of guys with more points than Mark Scheifele. He's got 14 in his last 7 games. Like, you talk about a guy raising his game, as the spotlight gets more intense and trying to drag his team into the fight. Mark Scheifele is doing that in a major way. And of course, Kyle Connor right there beside him. Kyle, all of a sudden, he's now knocking on the door of 40 goals. And, there's a good chance he's going to get there, especially the way these two are playing. And so, it's pretty incredible to think of the season they're having. And, I'll toss Gabe Vilardi in there as well. I think, Huss, if you add up the goals now, what Connor's 38, Scheifele's 34, so that's 72. And Gabe Vilardi, who was on that top line for a long stretch of time, he's not now, but he's got 29. That's 101 goals. That's 101 goals between those 3 guys, which I believe is just south of 50% of all of Winnipeg's goals this year. Again, you talk about the need for secondary scoring. I know Scheifele and Connor, they're as a duo, right? They're pretty much on top of the league for goals scored by a duo. And if you wanted to extend that to trio with Vilardi, I got to think 101 by 3 guys that have been frequent line mates. So that's about as big a number as you'll see in the NHL. And yet it drops off a cliff after that. And again, it just goes to missed opportunities if you're the Jets. If you said at the beginning of the year, we're going to get 101 goals from Scheifele, Connor, Vilardi, you'd think this team is again competing for a President's Trophy again.
Yeah, that that is for sure. I mean, listen, it's there's all sorts of ways you can look at this season. It'll be incredibly disappointing if they don't make the playoffs. They're playing their asses off to try to get there. Probably not enough runway left, but we will see. But I will say this, over the course of these final 5 games, we will have plenty of milestone watches. You mentioned 40 for Connor. He needs 2. Yeah. Gabe needs 1 for 30. And I think quietly, Vilardi's season has been phenomenal. He has been the guy that they've moved off that line. Never want to switch up. But, they obviously have always resisted mixing up Connor and Scheifele. But I think Vilardi's been a big part of the resurgence of Cole Perfetti in the second half. And listen, he's being rewarded right now. And he's already had a career year. He's been healthy, touch wood, and we'll see that. And then, of course, the other big one for Mark Scheifele, 3 more points to get to 100 for the first time in his career.
And it's crazy, Huss. He's he's 28 away from Dale Hrabchak. Like, and it wasn't that long ago that record, that number seemed like, okay, it's going to be a couple seasons till he gets there. No, at this pace, he's going to get there early next season. And that's a record, for all the milestones that Mark Scheifele's hit. I think passing Dale Hrabchak, Ducky, his mentor, his former junior coach, guy that means the world to him, the one guy whose statue is outside Canada Life Center, maybe to be joined by Mark Scheifele one day in that memorable way. He's 28 away, and I don't know, the pace he's going, he might get 8 or 10 more before this season's over, the regular season, with 5 more games. And then, it's not going to take too long, probably next season. And, he's also closing in. He'll close in on 1,000 games next year. So there's some big milestones still to come. But yeah, I mean, the milestone that would mean the most to Mark Scheifele is leading this team to a Stanley Cup. And you got to get into the dance, obviously, to have a chance every year. Nobody can say he's not doing his part to try and get this team there. He's been terrific. And to your point about, Vilardi and that, I wouldn't go so far as to say the Jets have an excellent second line right now, but I will say they have a very competent second line, thanks to Vilardi, thanks to Cole Perfetti playing a lot better. And even Adam Lowry's game, I think, has really ticked up as the season's gone along, which isn't surprising, Huss, given the injury that he was coming off, hip surgery. That's a serious surgery. It made a lot of sense. Both Perfetti and Lowry were going to take time, and maybe they'll never get to 100% this season, but they're both trending in the right direction. And, the Jets can now roll that line, and you're getting some good contributions from other places. If the power play can start to score as it did last night, the Jets are, again, a pretty dangerous team, because one thing we never really talked about, Huss, but they're playing a lot better defensively. No, it's not William Jennings trophy defense like the last 2 years, but they really are starting to limit a lot of the really high danger grade A chances. We've seen teams lately playing the Jets struggle to even hit 20 shots. The Jets are doing a good job of clogging up the middle of the ice, and Connor Hrabchak is maybe not Hart Trophy form, but more than competent, and even a slightly above average Connor Hrabchak is still an elite Connor Hrabchak. So it's all adding up to, a really nice run here for the Jets, one that they got 5 more games. And I know they're not looking at it that, they need to win 7 in a row because they've won 2 in a row now. They're almost looking at it, Huss, as they need to have 7 one-game winning streaks. Well, they've had 2. They need 5 more starting Thursday night, and, we'll see if they can keep the good times rolling here.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Speaking of which, if you want to join us, there's 2 games left at home in the regular season. We'll finish it up with the fan appreciation game on the 16th against the Sharks. But this Saturday, it's our final WST game. So if you want to get in there, should be a real fun night, especially with what Philly's doing right now. Go to winnipegjets.com/WST and grab your seats, and should be a real fun final Saturday night game of the year. Which brings me, I have to give you a little bit of brain damage on something, Mike. I'll preface this with, I went to the game last night, and obviously I want to see the building full. I want to see it. And I mean, considering some of a couple of the softer crowds has been like those Tuesday nights in the middle of 8-game homestand. There's been so much hockey. I know that when I was splitting up our season tickets, I think that Monday game against Seattle was either the last pick or the last couple. Yeah. I went to the game wondering what the crowd was going to be like. And I won't single you out, but there have been some members of the media that trip all over themselves to tweet out when there's a bad crowd. And piece wrote, I don't know why the editor left it up on the main page of the Sports for 3 weeks after the Duck game. But would you not agree that was a great crowd last night, a surprising one? And I think that bodes well. And I think it speaks very well of the fans that came out right now. Still, despite the plight of the Winnipeg Jets, kind of believing and wanting to do what they can to sort of help out.
Yeah, for those who didn't see, I believe it was almost 14-5. So it was just over 700 short of a sellout, that's impressive on a Monday night for sure.
And it looks great.
It did.
Like, you
I'll
look
say
at
this.
like, usually 310, 324, 325.
Yeah.
Those are sort of those problem areas. Like, I don't know what they did, whether they had a big group sales that night or had good walk up or something, but I was very pleased with that and didn't really hear anyone talking about it.
So I'll just in my defense, I usually do tweet out what the crowd is, and regardless of what it is, when it's great, when it's not great. I didn't tweet anything out last night, but here's why, Huss. An hour after the game last night, there was still no crowd posted on, like, we get copies after the game of the game sheet. There wasn't even an attendance number listed on the game sheet. And so I didn't actually see what the crowd was until this morning. It got added late and I have no idea why. All I know is sometimes you'll go to NHL.com and in the third period, you'll see what the crowd is. Lots of times when it's a sellout, it's posted really early because I guess they know that ahead of time. But last night, we were joking in the press box after that the guy who does the count must have like not come to work or something, or he lost track or something. But yeah, it was a long delay after the game before the official crowd even got posted. So honestly, like, I didn't see it till this morning. I know Kenny did the gamer last night. Normally we include the crowd count in the gamer. It wasn't there because there wasn't a crowd count at the time he filed his story. Really odd. I'm not sure why that was the case.
That is funny. Anyways, I just wanted to give you a little brain damage on that.
It was. I imagine Saturday, these last two games, I'd be surprised if they aren't very close to sellouts. Saturday nights usually draw well. The Flyers are usually a good draw as well. And as you say, last Saturday night, and then that game against the Sharks, I mean, it could mean a ton. Even if it doesn't mean anything, it's the last game of the year. It's one of the most exciting young players in the league in Macklin Celebrini. It's the last chance to see the Jets in action. So I'd be surprised if we don't get... What's that?
I noticed last night they were doing a little advertisement for the fan appreciation game.
Yeah.
And amongst many things they're giving away, you could win Jet Dogs for a year. Sign me up for that.
Whoa.
So I'm sure the fellas at Winkler Meats are...
Is that just for the season, or do you get them in the summer too?
I think for a year. So, I mean, yeah, like, I don't know whether it's, you get them at the rink or whether here you go, here's stock of everything you need to eat Joey Chestnut style every single day of the year, but it'll be good. Anyways, Mike, thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet. I was going to say, we need a Netflix documentary. You know that guy that ate McDonald's for the whole year? Yeah. We need a Netflix documentary on the guy that eats Jet Dogs for a year.
I love it. Mike, have yourself a great one. We'll see you down at the rink this week. Great chat as always.
You bet, Huss. Take care.
All right, there's Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. Don't forget, coming up at the top of the hour, we're going live with the Masters preview. Chat will be open, so the party will continue there. We are going to talk some curling right now. The Rock League is coming up. We will hear from John Cullen next on this new curling league, and it's a free agent frenzy in the roaring game. That's next on WST. WST would like to thank our friends at Cleanline Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk throughout the Jet season. When we're doing the Winnipeg Jet lines, we do it with the gang at Cleanline, who are the leaders in Winnipeg residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical services. Your one-stop shop with over 40 years of experience. And like the captain, Adam Lowry, has the back of his teammates, Cleanline has yours with 24/7 emergency services. So when you're in a jam at any time of the day, Cleanline has you covered. 204-500-2001 is the number. Write that one down, 204-500-2001 for 24/7 emergency services from the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. You can find out more online at cleanline.ca. Well, we've got a lot to talk about with our next guest. Let's bring him back, our go-to guy for all things rock, Cullen the Curler himself, John Cullen, who is in Toronto at the debut of Rock League. John, what's going on? Always love having you on WST. How are you?
I'm great, man. Always love being on the show. Thanks so much for having me back. I am about a stone's throw away from the Mattamy Athletic Center right now, where we are, we're debuting Rock League this week, and it's been wild, man.
Hey, just before we get to Rock League, just quick thoughts on Matty Dunstone and his team's performance at the World Championships. Great run, falling just short in the final. And, of course, the big story was the tearful final match of Canadian curling legend DJ Harden.
Yeah, totally. I saw you had him on after he won the Brier, and yeah, I thought it was a really good performance for them. I think, it was interesting. We talked, I think, last time I was on about, just Matt plays with a lot of emotion, and that's kind of what makes him good, right? It's a bit of it can be up, it can be down, but he kind of relies on that and feeds off it. And I thought it was interesting, he loses what is ostensibly the biggest game of his life, the World Final, to Nicholas Sedin, and he didn't really seem that upset about it. He even said in the post-game interview, this is probably the happiest I've ever been winning a silver medal. I think that just goes to show something I've said on your show a bunch of times. The world is catching up to Canada. Obviously, Nicholas Sedin, 8-time world champion now. So losing to him, there's certainly no shame in that. But yeah, they had a great run all week. I think they won 11 in a row to get into that final. It's the worlds are a grind, Huss. So yeah, they won 11 in a row to get there. And yeah, a great send-off for EJ too. I think one thing I really liked is, I think we've sort of seen, and we kind of said maybe we're going to talk a little bit about the free agency thing going on in curling right now. But as we know, Matt hasn't found a replacement for EJ yet, or hasn't announced a replacement for EJ yet, I should say. And a lot of the potential replacements ended up on other teams. So I think people were like, oh, is EJ going to get sucked back in or whatever? And often that happens in curling, but looked like that was definitely his final game. He kind of reiterated, this is it for me. And what a way to go out, playing amazing in a world final. Yeah, you don't win, but incredible career for him, and about as close to going out on top as you can get.
I mean, we're going to have the who's who of the world's best playing at Mattamy all week in the new Rock League. I will say this about it, Dean. Like, it was shocking from a fan's perspective, seeing them do what they did at the Worlds, because they were terrible at the Olympic Games, and the only reason we were talking about them was our buddy Oscar and the everything that went down with the with Mark Kennedy in the Jacobs rink, which somehow resurfaced again this week.
Oh my God, I know it's the story that won't go away, for better and for worse, I suppose. But yeah, there was definitely a little tension in the building yesterday. Brad Jacobs' Rock League franchise played against Oscars. Now, they didn't end up in the same game together because Rock League has a men's game and a mixed doubles game happening at the same time. And so Oscar was playing in the mixed doubles game on the sheet beside Brad. But yeah, it's we'll see what happens if anything else happens this week. But yeah, no, I think it was pretty crazy. And I actually talked to Nick about it. He's here playing in Rock League. And I kind of asked him about that because, yeah, to your point, not just the Olympics, Huss, like they were horrible for most of the season. They weren't good in the slams. They went 0-5 in the Players' Championship, which was the last slam before the Olympics. And yeah, they won the Europeans, but the rest of the year they kind of looked off. And I talked to Nick about it. And one thing they did at the Worlds was they switched up the lineup a little bit. So everybody threw in the same order, but Christopher Sundgren, the lead, held the broom in the house, and they had Oscar sweeping because I think that they think Oscar is a bit better of a sweeper than Christopher is. And Nicholas told me that kind of made all the difference, just freshening up the lineup. And he said, you know what? We probably should have done it before the Olympics. We actually kind of talked about maybe doing it before the Olympics, but it's also, this has been our lineup for 10 years, doing it the same way. And do you want to make such a huge change before the Olympics? They decided not to, obviously ended up being to their detriment, but yeah, they were incredible at the Worlds, full value for their, insane to say 8th world title. I don't think that's going to be matched ever. It's insane.
Now, the Worlds are finished, and normally that would be it for the curling season, but not this year. Rock League began last night. It's a new innovation on the game featuring the world's best players on teams. Just give our listeners the 411 on what they need to know about Rock League before we sort of get into what we'll be seeing this week.
Sure, yeah. So it's, as you said, it's a brand new thing started by the curling group. So a couple years ago, the curling group bought the Grand Slams and pretty much right away said, one of the main things we want to do is also start a professional curling league. And they've only been in charge for less than 2 years, and they've managed to pull it off, which is incredibly impressive. So it's 60 curlers across 6 franchises, so 10 per franchise, and it's mixed gender, so there's 5 men and 5 women on each team. And it's kind of a cool format. They're almost playing sort of like a Ryder Cup style, where there's 3 games happening at a time. So you have two franchises playing each other. So let's say it's Team Cullen against Team Paterson, whatever. We'd say it's Typhoon and Alpine, and they play 1 men's game, 1 women's game, and 1 mixed doubles game all at the same time. And that's a best of 3. So if you win 2 out of the 3 games, you win that match. So sort of similar to like a Ryder Cup, you have a mixed doubles play there or scramble play, whatever. You win that, you get 1 point for your team. And so those matches are going to go all throughout the week. Then on Saturday, we're having true mixed curling. So it'll be men and women on the same team playing against each other in true mixed format. And then on Sunday, we go back to the 3-game format, and that'll be Championship Sunday. And so, it started yesterday, to your point. It's going to be going all week here in Toronto. Early returns were quite good. It was a super fun day yesterday. And it's been a really cool thing for the sport.
How, you're tight. You're basically around all of these curlers all season long. How have they reacted to it? It seems like there's a real buy-in from the best players in the world to be a part of this. Sometimes with new ventures or whatever, there's skepticism. It seems like everybody's all in on this.
100%. And I think that's the key to it, really. I think one thing that has been also really impressive about the curling group is they've done enough things with the slams where they've earned the trust of the curlers. Just some of the ways in which they've built the slams up, even in this short time period since they bought them, I think has really earned a lot of trust from the curlers. And so, I think, I've seen people compare this to the Continental Cup. I don't know if you remember that, but that was sort of like a Ryder Cup style event where it was North America versus Europe in curling games. And people kind of said, this is going to be like the Continental Cup. Well, number one, there's a lot more money in it than there was in the Continental Cup. So just starting with that, like the prize purse here is $250,000, plus all the players are guaranteed a base pay, and then they earn more money based on their finish throughout the week. So there's that. But then number 2, I think, the curlers really recognize like this is something new. It's something different. And it's a chance to really grow the sport. North America, whether we like it or not, is pretty much a league-based society, I guess, for lack of a better word. All of our sports are leagues pretty much. So I think that this is a really positive change. The curlers here are all super excited. They're taking it super seriously. You could see it yesterday, just how excited the teams that won were to win, and the teams that lost, how disappointed they were to lose. It's incredible, and I think it's only going to ramp up as we go throughout the week and get closer to the playoffs.
So, John, fill us in on how it came to be. We know like Nick Slagowski and the curling group, they've been working towards this, and it was a goal of theirs. But like, how did they come up with the teams? There's captains. Was it some sort of a draft? Did they put people from particular countries together? How did we end up with the 6 units that are playing in the first edition of it?
Yeah, so the first 6 franchises are all region-based. So you have 2 Canadian franchises, Shield and Maple. You have 2 European franchises, Northern and Alpine. Then you have a US one, Frontier, and you have an Asia-Pacific one, Typhoon. And then they're allowed to also import a couple players from other regions. So I think it's like 30% of the team is allowed to be from somewhere else. So for example, like Emma Miskew from Rachel Homan's team is playing for Alpine, the Northern European team. And then Sarah Wilkes is playing for the American team, also from Homan's team. So there is a little bit of mixing there. And I think the idea, Huss, is, you want someone to cheer for, right? You want to cheer for your favorite players, for sure. But you probably also want to cheer for your country or your region or whatever. And so, so I think that was kind of the way in which they're starting it. Now, I think eventually they'd like to get to sort of like a Major League Soccer model where the league sells stakes in the franchises. And then maybe do we see, someone who owns that franchise maybe has ties to a particular city and they want to rebrand the franchise to be the, Toronto curlers or whatever, they could do that. But for right now, yeah, it's all region based. And the curlers were selected by the curling group. Jennifer Jones, John Morris were in charge of that. And they were the ones who kind of picked who they thought the best curlers would be and put them on the franchises. So that's how it's working for year one. We'll see in year two, maybe trades, maybe roster expansions, who knows? But for now, that's how we ended up here.
Well, that's great. There's been no contract holdouts or anything like that. I mean, I guess we're just one day in, so we'll see how things go. Now, when things are at, so the matches, you've got the 4v4 men, 4v4 women, and the mixed. If a player plays in the mixed, are they just basically mixed players, or will we see even that shake up over the course of the week?
Yes. So each team has a GM. So in most cases, they're a retired curler that people know. So like Maple United's GM is Glenn Howard, and like Alpine's is Eve Muirhead, Scottish Olympic gold medalist. So the GMs are in charge of the team's lineup. So they've got 5 men and 5 women with which to choose from. Some of the teams have gone with a consistent lineup. So as I'm talking to you, we're on day 2, and the lineups for today have already come out. So 4 of the franchises are keeping their lineups the same from yesterday. So it'll be the same men, women, and mixed doubles teams, but 2 of them have changed it up. And that's totally up to the discretion of the GM. And I believe as the week goes on, we're going to see more of those teams kind of jumble their lineups. And then when we get to the Saturday mixed husk, there's actually going to be players on the bench that will be able to substitute in the middle of a game, which we've never really seen in curling before. Wow. So I'm excited to see how that all plays out too. Yeah.
Someone's just, hey, listen, you're not getting it done.
Yeah,
hit
exactly.
The canteen. We got someone else that's coming in to
we got a bar in the middle of the rink. I don't know if you saw, but there's 3 sheets. Normally we would have 4 sheets. So we took that one sheet we're not using and we put a bar there right in the middle. So it's not even hit the canteen. It's like, you know what? You can get an early start. Head on over to the sheet side bar. We'll see after the game.
That is what curling is all about. I could not endorse something more than that. And, I was out at the Mattamy for, was it the Princess Auto? I guess the Players Championship, probably like 3 years ago or so. And pretty great venue for something like this. And certainly, you got a little bit of hospitality, the viewing, the sight lines are great. I mean, tell us about day one. I think everyone was, and listen, traditionally, events like this that are week long sort of build throughout the week, but there's a unique amount, I think, of attention on the Monday of a curling event because of the new nature. I mean, how did things go?
Yeah, it went well. I think we were pretty happy. Like you said, it's a Monday. Also, maybe doesn't help that the Dodgers are in town playing the Blue Jays. I mean, we saw how that went last night, but
I think people should go to Rockley.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking attendance might be better tonight. People are going to sell their Jays tickets and come on over to the Mattamy and watch the curling. But yeah, so I think we were pretty happy with how it went yesterday. Obviously, people could have watched it on streaming or whatever and seen, like, it wasn't full in there, but considering it was a Monday and, like you said, a week-long event builds, I think we were quite happy with the attendance. And I think really the on-ice viewing is the thing that we're the most excited about, that sheet side bar I was telling you about, and that was full. Like, all 3 draws, people were in there having a great time. You get so up close to the curlers in a way you've never been able to before. And so I think just seeing fans embrace that was really exciting for us.
I was just reading the piece at rockleague.com. Obviously there was a lot of excitement for this, but first impressions of the curlers, I think, sounded like it was really positive because it is a little different and obviously a different format, playing with different players than you're normally with. I mean, it's added something new, and it seems like it's really sort of, invigorated this group that would normally be into the off season.
100%. And I think too, like, when we're thinking of curling teams now, especially internationally, a lot of them have played together for a really long time. Like Bruce Mowat, the world number 1 from Scotland, they've been together for 9 years. Anna Hasselborg and her team from Sweden, they've been together for 11. So, I think in Canada, we see the free agent carousel and we think, oh, teams are changing all the time. But internationally, a lot of the time, Huss, these teams are staying together for years and years and years because that's what their national federation tells them to do. So I think for them, especially because they don't get to pick their own teams, they often play with the same curlers, like I say, for years and years at a time. This is a really, really exciting experience for them because it's truly like, yeah, I've been rooming with and on the road with the same 4 or 5 people for a decade. This is just a way of seeing how other people do it. And it's also forcing there's some language barriers. So it's forcing some different communication styles out of teams. And yeah, it's just been a blast to watch just as a fan. And from everything I've heard from the players, they're really loving that aspect of it.
Now, watching it, people out here in the Peg, the heartbeat of curling in Canada will be interested to it. All of these games are going to be broadcast. Let people in on when the games are and how they can tune into this inaugural event for Rock League.
Yeah, it's nice because it's the same schedule every day. So Eastern time, 12 p.m., 3:30 p.m., 7 p.m. every day for the rest of the week. If you're watching on a weekday, it is on CBC Gem in Canada. It's also on the Rock Channel, which is our own in-house streaming service. So you just go to rockchannel.com. It's free to sign up and free to watch. And then on the weekend, which we're very excited about, on Saturday, we have one of the mixed games. And then on Sunday, the semifinal and the final are on CBC television. So that was really important for us. We want people to be able to see this and kind of see the excitement around the game. And we have a great partner in CBC. And, you and I are of a similar vintage, Huss. I mean, it's just nice to have curling back on CBC. That was the home of the Brier finals and the Scotties finals and everything for years. It was TSN during the week, CBC on the weekend, and it hasn't been on CBC for quite a while now other than the Olympics. So I think we're really, really excited to be back on CBC, and hopefully fans will tune in on the weekend and catch it.
Well, and I noticed, our friends south of the border getting in on it as well. A little bit of exposure on the ESPN Plus network.
Yes, massive for us. Yeah, we got a great partner there, ESPN Plus. We also are going to have some matches on the BBC streaming on their iPlayer over there. We picked up a Korean TV network as well. So yeah, I think it just speaks to the ingenuity of the curling group, but it also speaks to truly how global the sport of curling is becoming, which I think the players playing in this league reflect that, and it's also being reflected in our TV and streaming partners. So it's all really very exciting.
Now, John Collins with us again, rockleague.com for more information. You watch the events and obviously CBC Gem and CBC on the weekend. This is normally the time where we get together and we talk about, especially in an Olympic year, the free agent frenzy of curling. I have to admit, you can speak to this a lot better than I can. Every time over the past 3 weeks or so, I see a tweet from you, it seems like there's been another shakeup to one of the top teams in the world. How would you characterize the player movement and everything that we've seen over the course of the last month?
Bloodbath? Is that a good word? Is bloodbath a good word? I don't know. That makes it sound maybe more violent than it actually is. But you're right. Really, I think you've nailed it. Like every quadrennial, we do see tons of team changes because that is how a lot of curling teams look at building themselves. They think like the focus is on the 2030 Olympics. If we can start now, we can build that chemistry and be ready for 2030. So you do see a lot of turnover at the end of a quad, but you also generally see a few teams stick together. And it's kind of looking like really we're only going to see 2 teams stick together. And it's the 2 teams we saw at the Olympics. This is speaking from a Canadian perspective, but Rachel Homan and Brad Jacobs. Now, Rachel Homan hasn't officially announced they're sticking together, but I think at this point it's fairly obvious. But Brad Jacobs has announced that their team is sticking together next year. But other than that, Huss, pretty much every top 10, top 15 team in Canada is making some kind of a change. So it's been, as you said, it feels like every day I'm popping out 2 or 3 tweets where I'm just announcing another team change. It's been wild.
You know, I mean, obviously people around here most interested in some of the Manitoba teams. Fill us in on what's up with Carey. Caitlin Law's taking time off, and Kate Cameron, I just saw, she's going to be playing with teaming up with Lucy St. George out of Quebec to, try and put together a great team out of there. It might have a little more of a chance of getting out of the province, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think, well, Kate told me she thought she was out. You know, it was one of those, I thought I was out till they pulled me back in. And Laurie St. George is a really great curler. And I think, she has shown over the years an ability to skip, but I think third might be a better position for her. And we've seen Kate have a lot of success skipping. We saw her at the Olympic trials. Obviously, she had a great run at the Scotties a couple of years ago, winning bronze there. And so, I think it's a good opportunity for her, like someone who is maybe going to take a step back. Now she can play a bit of a lighter schedule. As you might imagine, Quebec, a slightly easier province to win than Manitoba. They have a really good junior team coming up, though, that just won the Scotties and the Quebec Scotties and the Canadian juniors this year, Jolien Fortin. But St. George, I think, will be the favorite. Nice move for Kate. As far as Carey goes, I think it just felt like it was time. They'd been together for 8 years at the back end, her and Val, and you could kind of tell this year watching, even at the World Championships where they won a silver, there just seemed to be some tension there. It just seemed like it was time. They have to keep 3 team members to get their bye back to the Scotties as Team Canada. So it was only Val that's leaving, along with their alternate Kristen and their coach Reed. They announced they're picking up Jocelyn Peterman, who we saw at the Olympics playing mixed doubles. She was on Team Laws last year. So I think that's a great pickup for them. She's a veteran player, I think is going to bring a lot to that team. And Shannon Burchard is going to go back to throwing third, which she had a lot of success at, won a Scotties with Jennifer Jones throwing third. So I like the move for that team. And for Caitlin, I think 2 kids, she's out on the farm. Why not take a break? See what happens. There'll be opportunities. She's Caitlin Laws. If she wants to come back in a year or 2 years, she'll be able to find a spot. So, I think that's kind of where we're at in Manitoba on the women's side of things.
We talked about Dunstone before. I mean, just before we go, 2 of the top players from Winnipeg, Matt Dunstone and, of course, Mike McEwen. Mike McEwen's been playing in Saskatchewan the last few years. He's switching teams. Fill us in on what Mike's up to. And then who is going to be filling the big shoes? Who's even out there for Dunstone to add to his team? Because I imagine that's a pretty nice spot to land if you were a prospective player looking for a spot to play on the defending Brier champs.
Now, you would think that, Huss, but I think they had a little more trouble filling that spot than they thought they would. So I'll start there with Matt Dunstone. So, to your point, EJ Harnden retiring, and same thing as Carey. They have to keep 3 players to get their bye back to the Brier as Team Canada. And I think they have, Matt and Colton are lifelong best friends. They really like Ryan. Ryan's one of the better leads in the game. So the 3 of them sticking together makes perfect sense. I think, so in Saskatchewan, Mike McEwen was let go from his team, which was with Colton Flash and the Marsh brothers, and they picked up Tyler Tardy to skip. Now, I think that Matt Dunstone would have loved to have Tyler Tardy or Colton Flash on his team. I believe that offers were extended to both of those players and they declined the spot. I think Tyler really wanted to go back to skipping. I think Colton didn't necessarily want to play second. So I think it was just maybe a better option for them. Colton's also very close with the Marsh twins. And so, we're kind of sitting here April 7th. Not exactly sure. The one name that pops out to me, though, is Mark Nichols. Brad Gushew's longtime third. He hasn't announced retirement. We know Brad is retiring. In all of that, Mark never came out and said he was retiring. And when you've played for Brad Gushew your whole life, it's kind of hard to play for someone who's not that good. So in my mind, Matt Dunstone, defending Canadian champion, you got to bye to the Brier. Is that a spot that works for Mark Nichols? I think it probably is. So that's where my betting, if I was betting, that's where my money would be. I don't have any inside information on that, but that just seems like the natural fit to me. And then, Mike McEwen ended up with a young Saskatchewan team, Rylan Kleider, who we saw at the Olympic trials. He was in the Brier a couple of years ago. They're all young guys. And again, similar to Laurie St. George, I think Ryland's been skipping for a long time, and maybe third will be a nice fit for him with Mike at skip. So, he's going to stay in Saskatchewan and try to get a spot at the Brier, which is the 100th anniversary of the Brier, and in Saskatoon. So I'm sure Mike would love to be wearing Kelly green at that Brier next year.
Well, I tell you what, it'll give us a lot to talk about in a week or so. Right now, though, the focus is on the inaugural event of the Rock League in Toronto. Folks, you can find out more, rockleague.com. You can see the dulcet tones of my friend John here doing great work on the broadcast. And, of course, it'll be on CBC Gem and then CBC, the main network, coming up on the weekend. John, good luck. All the best to everyone on this new endeavor. I think it's awesome development for curling fans. Cannot wait to see more of it this week and have some great broadcasts and some great action on the ice and maybe even on that rinkside bar as well.
Oof. We'll see. We'll see if they let me broadcast from down there. I'm not sure if that's allowed, but we'll talk to our people. Thanks so much for having me, Huss. It was always a pleasure.
You're the best, buddy. Folks, give him a follow on X at Cullen on Curling and check it all out at rockleague.com. It's time to get ready for spring with our friends at Royal Sports, Winnipeg's sports superstore, family owned and operated for over 50 years. And as we get the snow out of here, it is time to get back on the pitch. Royal is the soccer headquarters in town with more boots than you've ever seen. Not to mention great soccer merch from teams and nations around the world. Of course, we got baseball and slow pitch season coming up. They'll get you ready with gloves, bats, everything you need to dominate on it. Of course, they've still got hockey gear, snowboarding gear for those of you making the trip out for spring break, and the best selection of licensed merchandise for fans of the NHL, National Football League, NBA, and of course, Major League Baseball with Blue Jays season just around the corner. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. You got to see it to believe it. Get down there today and make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. We still do have plenty of games to get to for the Winnipeg Jets season, and with many on the road, no better place to get together with your gang to watch the squad than your local Boston Pizza. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and of course, Winnipeg Jets pick a player contest where you can win great prizes from BP every time the Winnipeg Jets score. So for the next game or the big game on the TV, head on down to Boston Pizza at your local BP location. Buckle up. And of course, if you are staying at home, you can get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, much more to come on WST. But first, a big shout out to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, great stuff. As I mentioned, if you just popped in a little late, we have the party's not over. We are going to finish this stream and then take you right into the premiere of our Masters preview and pick show with myself, Pat, and JBM. By the way, congratulations to Pat on winning the March Madness pool. I think he's in high spirits with a little bit of that Michigan money to throw down on the Masters. Speaking of the Masters, golf, I know we've got this stupid weather statement coming in. The snow will be melting. We'll be back on the course at Breezy Bend very, very soon. If you're looking for an amazing long-term golfing home in the city for you and your family at one of Winnipeg's top private courses, check out breezybend.ca while you're thinking about golf this weekend. Just before we wrap, Busy night today, Connor, in the games in the National Hockey League. Couple huge ones. Columbus, Detroit. That feels like a loser leaves town match. Philly looking to stay there in their playoff spot. They're plus 102 in Jersey. The Sens at home against the Lightning, who lost last night to Buffalo. Huge game for Ottawa. And the Blues are going to be trying to do what the Jets did last night, stay alive. They're at home to the Colorado Avalanche. And the Preds in action tonight against the Anaheim Ducks. So lots of scoreboard watching will continue over the next couple days before the Jets and Blues go at it in St. Louis.
Yeah, the scoreboard watching never ends, us. And the Blues just beat the Avs on Sunday with an impressive 3-2 road win in regulation. It was a great game. Yeah, I was watching that one too. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. And the Flyers, you mentioned them right off the top. None of these Metro playoffs really interest me. I know like Matthew Schaefer would be awesome to see in the playoffs, but like the potential of us getting Pittsburgh versus Philly in that Metro 2-3, I'm all in on. Like that rivalry is so great. Sidney Crosby against Philly. I would absolutely love that more than like Pittsburgh, New York or Pittsburgh, Columbus. That's what I'm rooting for in kind of that Eastern wildcard race, is for us to get Pittsburgh, Philly, because that rivalry is awesome. And I would love to see that.
Yeah. As we mentioned, we'll get more into this tomorrow. We were sort of really focused in on the Jets today and everything, but we saw Tortorella go in for Bruce Cassidy. Peter DeBoer, I don't think the Islanders play again until Thursday, so that'll be his debut. And then we saw a GM get whacked. Tom Fitzgerald out in New Jersey as the president and GM of the Devils. So a few more late season moves than we've seen recently. And Fitzgerald, of course, the first ever captain of the Predators. Lots of talk that he might just move right from New Jersey over to Tennessee, but I guess we will see that. Jets back at practice tomorrow, Connor, so we'll have the latest when you join me on the program coming out of the morning skate, and then it'll be on the plane to St. Louis for Winnipeg and the Blues coming up on Thursday night. All right, that's going to do it, but don't go anywhere. If you're with us live on YouTube, we're going to end this stream and take you right over to our Masters preview with myself, Pat, and Jake, presented by our partners at CoolBet. Don't forget, poker tomorrow night, 8 p.m. We'll have more details on the show tomorrow, or check my socials. Thanks again to John Cullen, Mike McIntyre, Adam Smitsniuk, and, of course, Connor Hrabchak. Stay tuned. Our Masters preview is live now on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.